The thing about grief is that it hollows you out, leaving this echoing space where a person used to be. For me, that person was Mark, my husband, my everything. The funeral was a blur of black clothes, hushed condolences, and casseroles I had no appetite for. Our little house, once filled with his laughter and the scent of his sawdust from the garage workshop, fell silent. It was a crushing, absolute silence. That's why the first letter was such a shock. It arrived about a week after we buried him. A plain white envelope, my name, Ilara, written on the front in his familiar, slightly messy cursive. I nearly dropped my keys. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. It couldn't be. I knew his handwriting better than my own. I'd seen it on countless birthday cards, post-it notes left on the fridge, and in the margins of his favorite books. With trembling fingers, I tore it open. The postmark was from 3 days after the funeral. Impossible. My mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. Maybe he'd written a series of letters before the accident. A last gift. But why would they be postmarked after? The note inside was short, written on the same stationery he always used. It simply said, "My love, don't cry. I'm okay. I miss you." That was it. No explanation, no grand farewell. Just a simple message so quintessentially, Mark. I sank onto the floor, the letter clutched in my hand, and sobbed. Not just from grief, but from a terrifying, burgeoning hope that felt like a betrayal. I hid the letter. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? They'd just say my grief was making me see things. A week later, another one came. Same handwriting, same stationery. This one was postmarked the day before. "I saw you in the garden today," it read. "The roses are blooming nicely. You look so tired, Ilara. Please get some rest." A cold dread washed over me. I had been in the garden. I'd been pruning the rose bushes he planted for our first anniversary, feeling utterly alone. But the letter said, he saw me. I rushed to the window, scanning the street, the neighbors' yards. Nothing. Just the quiet, empty street. The feeling of being watched began to creep in, a constant, prickling sensation on the back of my neck. The letters kept coming once a week, like clockwork. Each one held a small detail from my day. "You burned the toast this morning. You always hated burnt toast," one said. I had. I'd been so distracted I let it turn to charcoal. Another read. "I love the blue dress. It always brought out your eyes." I'd worn that dress to a therapy appointment, trying to feel like myself again. It felt less like a comfort and more like surveillance. The loving words were still there, but they were now tainted by an unnerving omniscience. How could he know these things? My grief was mutating into fear. The silence in the house was no longer empty, it was watchful. I started talking to him, whispering into the quiet rooms. "Mark? Is that you? How are you doing this?" The only answer was the creak of the floorboards or the sigh of the wind outside. I started sleeping with the lights on. Every shadow seemed to take on his shape. I'd catch a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision and whip my head around, only to find nothing there. One evening I was in his old workshop, surrounded by the smell of wood and oil that still lingered. I was trying to feel close to him, to remember the man, not the ghost. Then I saw it. Tucked away on a high shelf was a box of his favorite stationery and a book of stamps. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. I counted them. There were dozens of envelopes, plenty for months, maybe years, of letters. The logical part of my brain screamed that someone else was doing this. A cruel prank. But who? And how did they know such intimate details? The next letter arrived, and it was different. "Come to the lake house, Ilara. I have a surprise for you. Saturday. I need to see you." The lake house. Our special place. We hadn't been there since the year before the accident. It was remote, isolated. My therapist had warned me against making any big decisions or going to emotionally charged places, but this wasn't a decision. It was a summons. The hope, that terrible, beautiful hope, surged back. What if? What if he'd found a way? What if this was real? Against every rational thought, I packed a small bag on Saturday morning. The drive was 2 hours of pure anxiety. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. Was I being foolish? Was I walking into a trap? But the desire to see him, to understand, was a gravitational pull I couldn't resist. I arrived as the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. The lake house looked just as we'd left it, a little dusty, a little neglected, but ours. I unlocked the door, my heart pounding. "Mark," I called out, my voice trembling. The air inside was still and cold. I walked through the familiar rooms, touching the furniture, my breath catching in my throat. Nothing. He wasn't there. Defeated, I sank onto the sofa, tears of frustration and foolishness welling up. It was a prank, a sick, twisted game, and I had fallen for it completely. As darkness fell outside, a profound despair settled over me. I was about to get up and leave, to drive back to my empty house and face my lonely reality, when I heard it, a faint scratching sound. It was coming from the bedroom. My fear returned, sharp and immediate. I grabbed a heavy iron poker from the fireplace and crept toward the bedroom door. The scratching grew louder, more frantic. It sounded like fingernails on wood. I took a deep breath, threw the door open, and held up the poker. The room was empty, but the scratching continued. It was coming from inside the wardrobe. Mark's old, heavy oak wardrobe, the one he'd built himself. My blood ran cold. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then a soft, muffled voice whispered from within. "Ilara." It was his voice. I would know it anywhere. It was Mark's voice. "Mark?" I whispered back, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped the poker. "Is that you?" "Let me out, Ilara," the voice pleaded, sounding weak and strained. "It's so dark in here, please let me out." My mind fractured. This was impossible. He was gone. I'd seen him. I'd buried him. But the voice, it was him. Logic fought against love. Sanity against a desperate, impossible hope. I took a hesitant step toward the wardrobe. "The letters," I stammered. "Was it you?" "Yes, my love. I've been trying to reach you, trying to come back to you. I'm so close now, just open the door." His voice was so convincing, so full of the love I missed so dearly. I reached for the handle, my fingers brushed against the cold metal. But then I remembered the postmarks, the details from my life. How could he have mailed letters if he was trapped in here? How could he have seen me in the garden? The questions flooded my mind, a dam of reason breaking against the tide of emotion. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I snatched my hand back. "No," I said, my voice gaining a sliver of strength. "How did you mail them, Mark?" The silence from the wardrobe was heavy, charged. Then the voice changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp impatience. "That doesn't matter now, Ilara. Just open the door." "It's not you," I whispered, backing away. "Who are you?" A low, guttural chuckle echoed from inside the wardrobe, a sound that was nothing like my husband's laugh. It was a dry, rasping sound, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. "I am the one who watched him write the letters," the voice hissed, no longer trying to imitate Mark. "He wrote so many for every occasion he would miss. Birthdays, anniversaries. He even wrote one for you for when you finally found someone new. He loved you so much." The voice paused, letting the words sink in. He was so focused on the letters he never saw the car coming. But I did. And when he was gone, I found his words. Such beautiful words. The perfect key to open a door named Ilara. "Now be a good wife and open the door." The last words were a roar, and the wardrobe doors buckled outward, splintering the wood. I didn't wait to see what would come out. I screamed, turned, and ran. I fled the lake house, not daring to look back, the sound of splintering wood and a monstrous, unhuman shriek chasing me into the night. I drove, not knowing where I was going, just away. Away from the lake, away from the letters, away from the voice in the wardrobe. I know it's still out there, It has his memories, his words, his love for me. And I know, someday, it will find a new way to write, a new way to call my name. And I'm so afraid that one day I'll be too lonely to stop myself from answering.